Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. The Zanu PF regime is determined to stop the run on the new currency, the ZiG. And typically, it's doing it by hook or by crook. One way, of course, of preventing the run on the ZiG is to make sure that it is not available. So they've come up with restrictions on how much the ZiG is, how much is available on the market. So we have people queuing for hours on end to get a few hundred ZiG. This is taking money from their own account. It's not as if they're being given out of the goodness of the bank or the government. And they've got to come back tomorrow again and queue. And this is a drip feed. So you hang on to those ZiGs that you have. And then they are coming up with rules to restrict the trading of the ZiG to the other currencies and so forth. The whole thing seems to be so chaotic and it is causing unnecessary hardships. I can't believe. Do you really think this is going to work, Ben?
Good day to everybody. You know, we've been here before, and we know the results, how it works, you know, and what follows thereafter. So we shouldn't really be surprised or actually think this. You know, when we actually think that it might just work, I think we're actually being naive. It's just it will not work. I mean, we can see the fruits of it just you know, on the onset of in the introduction of ZiG, that there's so much confusion that is within the Zimbabwe economy. People are already queuing. You know, these are the signs of how the predecessors were. So nothing really is going to change here, and now it's now turning into a force matter. You know, I saw just yesterday there were, you know, some gazetted rules about exchange, you know, exchanging money. Now you cannot even, as far as, you know, you cannot even loan your family member any money. You know, it's, you know, it's just chaotic.
Yeah, I think the whole thing is really ridiculous. It's just making business very, very difficult for the ordinary citizen. The Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe governor has come up with a rule that says that some of the quarterly taxes must be paid, 50% of it must be paid in ZiG. And that should stimulate the demand on the ZiG. It really doesn't matter. You know, you can try to create those kind of artificial demands on the particular currency, but at the end of the day, it's not going to work. And I think at the present moment, the Zimbabwe economy is already having many problems. You know, I mean, it's not as if it's performing in top gear. You know, it's hardly in the first gear, and and making it very difficult to get the currency with which to trade will only slow the economy even more. You know, because for ordinary people, the ZiG is the currency they should be able to get readily. The American dollar, unless you've got relatives outside the country, is not going to be readily available. Anyone who is in the country has got the American dollar would want to hang on to it. And so far, if you deposit it into your bank account, in the past, it's been very difficult to get it, even when you've got a positive bank balance. The bank will tell you they don't have the notes. And maybe now they are available. But even if you go and withdraw the American dollar, you would want to hang on to it, particularly if you find it would be, if you're going to withdraw the ZiG, you're restricted to how much ZiG you can get. So this is just a kiya way, false economy of running the economy here. And that reminded me of this quotation that we've got on the screen there, that the closer the collapse of an empire, the crazier its rules. This was said by Marcus Tullius Cicero, a well-known Italian philosopher, politician. I think we are looking at that happening in Zimbabwe. The only difference is, of course, Zanu PF should have collapsed by now. But unfortunately, it just lingers on, like you blow out a candle and it still continues smoldering and the wick glowing. It just won't go out.
I have a question that I would have posed to, to government or the minister of, finance. His deputy is on the record that, the reason why he charges US dollars for
Sorry, Ben,
anyone that wants a passport is because they import the material for the passports from I forgot the country. If the USD was readily available in Zimbabwe, surely they could simply just.
Sorry, Ben, you're coming in and out. You're out completely. I don't know whether you could log out and come back again, see whether that will be any better, if you can hear me. Yeah, I agree. This is one of the crazy things about this regime. It keeps saying one thing and doing another. So far now, some of the petrol stations are refusing to accept payment for the petrol in ZiG. Maybe it's because for the simple reason that they have got to order the petrol and pay for it in foreign currency, US dollars. And of course, being paid in ZiG is no good, particularly if you can't get the ZiG, the American dollar, from the bank, and you can't get it on the street either, on the black market. So at the end of the day, where will you get the American dollar to pay for your petrol? So this is a serious problem, and I think, like I said, this is just kiya way of doing the economy. Nobody is going to. It's just putting more brakes on the economy, which is already traveling at a very, very slow speed, and it's not going to help in any way. Yes, the ZiG will not run because it's not available on the market, and and therefore then you want to give the impression that it is strong by making it scarcely available and making those people who are forced to be paid in ZiG near impossible for them to get their ZiG. So the whole thing is just meaningless. It's the way of the regime just trying to pretend that they are running the economy when they are not. Do you want to try it now, Ben? Maybe your connection is better.
Thank you. Sorry about the connectivity issue. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now. It's much better.
Okay. So I wanted, I was saying, I have a good question that would have been posed to the Minister of Finance or his deputy, because his deputy came out and said, there is a reason why they charge passports in US dollars. It's because they import the material from another country. I'm not really sure which country. I don't remember now, but that was his excuse of why he charges US dollars for passports. And I was like, if the US dollar is readily available, like how they say it is, and how they expect everybody else to just go into the bank if you have a good enough reason, I am sure they have a very good enough reason why even the banks should be able to give them that money to go and procure whatever needs to be procured to get the passports available to the citizens. I mean, look at the Zimbabwe economy. It's an economy that is importing almost everything because we ruined all our industry. We all our manufacturing industry that we had manufacturing for soap, things like that, they've all since closed. So which means we are relying on importing every single item. So why cannot the shops say the same thing, to say, we are also importing majority of our goods and that we are selling in the shops. So we should be able to charge also in US dollars, since you are giving the same excuse. I think that is just not acceptable given the current economic hardship that is there in terms of production. We're not producing anything. So everybody's got a valid reason. We could use the same reason as theirs. But I fail to understand how they would say, you guys, whoever is selling imported stuff, you must sell it, you must also make it available in local currency. They should be able to do the same. Actually, they should be the ones that are leading by example. But they're nowhere to be found. They would rather charge in forex, and a lot of government services are being charged in forex. So it doesn't add up. I honestly believe the only way this could have worked was if the economic fundamentals were okay in Zimbabwe. It might this whole ZiG would have had a chance, but because everything is haywire, you are just trying to force, tighten. You can only tighten something so much before it snaps. And I believe this is where we are headed towards, the snapping, of the economy. And I agree to say, the closer the collapse of an empire is, the craziest and the most wild decisions are being made. And unfortunately, like you said, it starts from the bottom of the pyramid, which is the citizens that suffer and feel the collapse before it gets to the top, who are cushioned by those at the bottom.
Yeah, it's most unfortunate that Zimbabwe's economy is really, it's all but completely collapsed. And we're just tinkering along just because a nation can never be declared bankrupt. That is really the only reason. And the regime is trying to stop the run on its local currency, the ZiG, by making the ZiG near impossible to get. And I agree with you that in this particular case, the rules they are coming up with, they don't make any sense at all. They're crazy, the rules. Zimbabwe is a multi-currency nation. That means the US dollar, the ZiG, the British pound, etc., etc. Those are all legal tenders. You can pay for your goods and services in all those currencies up to 2030, according to the government's own rules. So if I can pay for any of the services in any of the currencies, why should I not be able to say, oh, can I have pounds and I'll pay you dollars? For somebody who has got the pounds and they need the and I've got the dollars. You know, you should be able to trade in goods and services and pay in any of those currencies just as much as you should be able to trade in the currencies themselves. But now they're coming up with all manner of rules, and it's really meant to target the ordinary people and make life very, very difficult for the ordinary for the ordinary people. So in this particular case, if you go in a bus and the bus ticket is so many ZiG, and you have got American dollars and you pay in American dollars, what are you saying that the bus must give you change in American dollars? Because if they're going to give you back change in ZiG, they've got to talk of what exchange rate. You know, and in this particular case, if the exchange rate is the official, somebody is losing out there, because the official in the black market, it doesn't matter how many rules you want to bring in. If the black market exchange rate is higher, people in desperation will still go and pay for it. This is no different from the time when they introduced their Zupco buses. Yes, they were cheaper, but they were not available. You know, and if you've been waiting for a Zupco bus for 2 hours, 3 hours, you end up going on the emergency tax and pay twice or 3 times the price, at least to get home. You know, so this will just never work. It's just another way of making life very, very difficult for the ordinary Zimbabwean. And like I said here, the Zanu PF dictatorship has not collapsed. It's just lingered on, but that is not because of anything other than that the opposition betrayed the people of Zimbabwe. I think Zanu PF should have been finished by 2013 at the latest, at the end of the GNU, if MDC leaders had implemented the reforms. They did not. And that is the reason why we are where we are. And I think the people of Zimbabwe should really step up this issue of let's implement the democratic reforms so that we've got free, fair, and credible elections and put an end to this cycle of rigged election and bad governance.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, without democracy or without democratic space, I fear the worst. You know, ZANU PF will just keep on consolidating power to itself, you know, because they don't really have anybody that will, you know, question whatever they are doing. But once we get the political environment at par or equal or everybody has a meaningful say, I think we would stand a better chance. And this can only be achieved by implementing the reforms. And I have suggested a lot of times, and I said, we don't have to go and ask or write down the reforms, because probably, we may say they haven't implemented any reform. Maybe they do not know what the reforms are all about. So I suggested, we just take whatever SADC and other observer missions have written down as recommendations for us to enjoy free, fair, and credible, elections, and table those as they don't alter anything, because I mean they've said these recommendations from very with this booklet or with these minutes, and say these are the recommendations that an organization that you believe you are in and you stand with, why don't you listen to them? And we move forward from there. I think that is the most easiest part than going about saying we can go and tackle this through these defense mechanism strategies and all that. That will not work. I mean, we've been here for 24 years now, and I'm sure these same strategies will be spoken about going on to the 2028 elections. We've been there. We should be able to know that participating in rigged elections is a foregone conclusion. Nobody would win here. It's not how many numbers that people cast, ballots. It's all done exec. The whole shenanigan is done behind the scenes. So at the end, an election process like that means absolutely nothing. It's meaningless. It's just a formality. And at the end of the day, you've wasted your time. Zanu PF will win, and our suffering continues for yet another term.
Well, thank you very much, Benjamin. And for the listeners, thank you very much for joining us tonight. This saga goes on, and I think we really need to come up with solutions to it. The very idea that 2028 is coming and we're going to have yet another rigged elections is simply unthinkable. Thank you very much, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.